Hey, welcome back to the CA Power Player Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins, live from Springfield, Missouri today with, man, this dude, okay, I'm telling you what, this is going to be a special interview. This dude, that's a special story. He's accomplishing a lot. If you're out there and like, man, I would love to help agents and clients all over the U.S., not just like in my little bitty pond right where I'm from, then this is the interview for you. If you think big, this is the interview for you. From Draper, Utah with Brady Insurance Marketing. Welcome, Ty Brady.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Dude, I appreciate you being here, man. I've been watching you from afar. I love what you're doing. You've been blowing up, and I appreciate your time today. I know you're super busy.
Yes. I know it was a little bit of a challenge to get together, but I appreciate you making things work. So been
Yeah,
great.
man. Likewise, brother. Absolutely. So have you always lived in Draper, Utah?
I have always, my home base is here. My family is here, but I have moved out and come back. It always seemed to come back to here. You know, later here on the podcast show, you heard about how I built my agency and what I was able to do there. But I was a weekend dad for 2 years, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But yeah, primarily in Utah is
Yeah,
where
man.
I always come back to.
And what were you like? Was insurance like the first thing you did, or what did the career moves look like leading up to where you're at today?
Oh man. So no, I actually have a bachelor's degree in applied science and industrial design. And I actually worked for a general contractor, worked my way up into a project management role. And I built probably 2,000 to 3,000 homes over my career, developed a couple of thousand lots. And obviously in '07, '08, I mean, I thought that would be my career path, right? I was doing well, making six figures. You know, at the peak, we did about $33 million in revenue a year. I mean, so it wasn't a small outfit, but '07, '08 hit. And in November, right before Thanksgiving, I got my last paycheck and they said, see you later. So that was, and then there was a few years there where it was me trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I worked 17 jobs in 1 year, just trying to get the same amount of money that I was making. Lost my house in the process. I had to go live with my mom and dad. Luckily, they had room for us, me and my three kids and my wife. I mean, and then, I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And one of my contractors that I used invited me to go and work for them as a commission sales based person selling vinyl fencing. And I sold vinyl fencing for 5 years. But that first year, a guy introduced me to the senior market and Medicare and insurance. So I think I got licensed in October of '09 is what I ended up doing. And then it kind of took me a little while to get my footing because when I got an insurance license, there's all different lines of insurance, right? There's life insurance, there's health insurance, there's property and casualty, commercial, workman's comp, those types of things. And I tried it all. And what I fell in love was with Medicare. But then you got to understand captive versus non-captive. So I was with the captive shop. And, that works for somebody, but it isn't what I wanted to do. Sure. And a lot of people, it works really well being a captive shop. They help with a lot of things. But I realized when I'd write an application, the upline would get $300 and I'd make $100. And I'm like, man, I can't do this. This ain't going to work. I was there for about a year. And I left and found my upline is Kellogg Insurance Marketing. I found them and fell in love with what they do and how they help agents, especially Ron Kellogg. And that's when I decided to go on the road for 2 years. I'd leave on a Monday or a Sunday, come back on a Friday or Saturday. And my wife used to say, I'm just your weekend booty call because I was on the road. I was all over the country. And the whole idea was I would go there, I'd order a bunch of leads, I'd go and work with agents that I had recruited. So I sold all over the country, and now I'm in 44 states. Wow. And then I would leave them the rest of the leads that I had ordered to finish up. And that's how I was able to scale my agency, doubled my income every year for the next little while, and just blew it up from there. And now, I assist in training 3,000 to 5,000 agents every year. I'm pushing 800 agents direct to me. And, I have managers all over the country.
Let's go, man. Goodness gracious. How I mean, did that, what's crazy is like, you just shared a wild story of like having some success, losing it all, moving back in with your parents, starting over, working for somebody that used to work for you, right? I mean, that takes some, freaking lack of ego to do that, right? Then you go and, find insurance, and then you go and like, dude, now you're helping 800 agents direct to you around the country and managing a book of thousands of clients. And it's like, dang, bro, like, did you see, at what point did you see today as a possibility?
Wow, that is a great question. So one of the things that, at that vinyl fence company, they sat down and the sales manager said, "Hey, Ty, you need to make a dream board." And in fact, I'm going to Africa next on Tuesday. I'll be gone for 4 weeks. So it's one of those things I'm finally fulfilling because I had to find someone to go with me. But that dream board, I have accomplished every single thing on there. On that dream board I made 13 and a half years ago. And from that, I didn't really put a cap on. I didn't even know it was going to get this big, right? I'd go into my mentor and I'd say, "What do I need to do next?" And he's like, "Ty, follow your managers. Ty, follow your agents." So that's all I did. And people say, "Well, when are you going to retire?" I'm like, "There's no reason to retire. This is awesome. The people I'm able to help and the people that are able to, this changes people's lives, financial freedom. It's just a beautiful thing." So I don't know that I actually made a decision. I didn't put a cap on it. And now since then I've got some measurements that I want to achieve, but I didn't say, "Well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that." I mean, I think the first year I brought on like 15 agents. It was pretty small. And then when I really scaled it was 5 years in when I decided to, oh, by the way, I didn't mention this. The first 5 years I did part-time to get to a 6-figure income.
Wow.
I did make a residual income. I did make 6 figures within 14 months of me coming on board. But to get that residual income, it took me 5 years. Actually, it didn't take less than 5 years, 3.5 years. But then 5 years, I went all in recruiting and training agents.
Dude, there's a lot to unpack from this. This is such good intel and info. You guys that are going to be watching this a little bit later, man, you guys are in for a treat. This just keeps getting better. I did have one thing that I was thinking about that I wanted to pivot to before I go back to a couple questions. You mentioned earlier, because we're going to have a bunch of agents start asking me, so I'm just going to help them out right now. You mentioned earlier it was okay for people to text you. Is that still fine?
That is great.
So if they have questions, they need help, and you're watching this, you're like, dude, this Ty Brady dude is blowing my mind. I want to be the next Ty Brady, whatever. Where can they text?
They can, it's 1-385-800-1956. Now, if you text me in the next 4 weeks after this, I will. It is 1-385-800-1956.
Dude, I love it. That's awesome. Appreciate that. You mentioned a dream board. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how like a very small percentage of our audience has ever thought about building a dream board. And
Oh man, they're blowing it.
yeah, talk to them about that.
So I listened to a podcast show of a guy that runs a Fortune 500 company, and I'll relate it back to my dream board. He says, "I will not hire somebody if they do not make a dream board." And he says, when I sit down and interview them, if they don't bring me back a dream board, whether it's a collage on their phone, whether it's a poster board, whatever it is, he says, I won't hire them. He says, when you put that task out there, less than 1% will actually do it. Wow. And then he related, he's like, it's amazing to me when they put, what does your dream house look like? What does your dream income look like? What do you want to see in the next year? Do you want to pay off debt? What's your dream car? What do you want? What is your prime vacation? You want to go on a hunt to Africa? Do you want to have a beach house in Dubai? Whatever, right? What does that look like to you? And he says, it's amazing when you have those dream boards. And he says, I require it to be in the offices of my staff where I come in there and they cross off what they've accomplished, like whether it's paying off $1,000 credit card debt. And he says, it propels them. It's a visual.
I think he keeps getting phone calls because he's on his cell phone. Yeah.
So it propels them to do that next thing. And it's amazing because it's visually seen every single day I put on there, I wanted to get a boat on my dream board. I wanted to get a house. I wanted to get my wife a car. I wanted to take my kids on a Disneyland vacation. I wanted to go on a guided elk hunt. Those are all things. And it just keep asking yourself, what do you want it to be? Do you want to save for your kids' retirement or your kids' college? Do you want to save for retirement? What is it? Put it out there. A lot of times people talk about your mindset. That's a mindset thing when you see it visually.
100%. It's huge, man. I love that you're saying that because it's rare that we have someone on here who talks about this, but I'm writing down my goals like every single morning. So I'm eating this up. Like this is so strong. Also, I can remember like you're sharing some of this private stuff, and I'm like, man, like I can remember when I was on my honeymoon, and I'm like, writing down goals and trying to build a business. And one of our goals as a newlywed couple was to save $1,000 for a vacation. You know, which is crazy. Like, you know what I mean? Either party, like anybody watching, like they hear some of the things we're doing and they can't imagine that Ty Brady's trying to like take his kids to Disney World. It's like, dude, he could take his kids to Disney World every day right now if he wanted to,
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like, but we all start somewhere, no matter where you are, wherever you're sitting, wherever you're watching this from, you can be Ty Brady, like you just can. But you can't do it unless you implement in some of the things he's sharing, like the dream board. What's something on your dream board that you've looked at adding that you haven't accomplished that you would like to share?
My wife is from Virginia, and she wants a beach house in Virginia.
Let's go.
And to be honest with you, I could do it. We prioritized and done a few other things. Yeah. So it's my thing is I'm like, when you start getting stuff, whether the RV, the boat, those things own you, honestly. And I mean that in a good way and a bad way. They're great to have, but I mean, we go on a weekly trip because I have two houseboats where it's a week, but it is so rewarding. My kids unplug from all of their devices, and it's just that time. And I mean, they won't miss it. They won't miss it for a world. My kids are awesome wakeboarders. They love the tube. They love to get beat up and have dad drive around in the boat and kick them off the tube. But I mean, that's so there's a fine balance, right? I mean, yeah. I believe I will have a beach house in Virginia, and I know I will. In fact, I have the capability of doing it. I just haven't done it.
That's right, man. 100%. Man, dude, this is so good. I'm getting so fired up. Like just hanging out, listening to you. I mean, I have energy anyway, but like I'm gonna have energy for days after this now. You mentioned earlier a mentor.
Yeah.
How important is it to find someone, like if they don't have one, could you become one for them maybe,
when you started the journey of me of doing what I'm doing and growing this agency, I didn't realize the impact that I would make in people's lives. And what I mean by that is I have retired police detectives, and the retired police detective, she told me one day, she's like, Ty, when I was getting ready to retire, Social Security looked very grim. And now that particular agent, $300,000 a year and everything's paid for, 72 years old. I mean, she was a public servant. And I have people that were on state Medicaid. That's what's rewarding, but I didn't understand the impact I would make in these people's lives it's legacy, it's generational wealth to their siblings. And it impacted them in a way where they're able to be financially free. And now they're doing some of the same things that I'm doing, maybe not on the same scale, but they're like, hey, you know what? I've got a good income. I want to help people as well. So, I mean, not only do you help people, I mean, you help them physically, socially, mentally, and financially. It's all aspects of life. It's just not one thing. And I remember times when me being mentored or mentoring someone else, it gets dark and grim. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there's times when you're like, man, can I do this? And all the self-doubt that comes in. I'd go home on a weekend and I'd hug my wife and go to bed, and she's like, hey, we're gonna be all right. Which brings up another point we can talk about is that you need to have support at home. If you don't have support at home, you're in trouble. And I'll explain that a little bit later, but it's so impactful. I mean, some of my core values is value, service, impact, that you can serve, that you can create value, and it makes a huge impact.
Yeah, it does. Speaking of impact, you've talked a lot about your family throughout this already and like how important they are to you. Talk about them. Who's all in that?
I always get emotional when I talk about my